I don't know what to do with that. What is this? Should I use inches or centimeter? Meter. I prefer the meter. Do you feel confused and frightened about music theory? And in specific about intervals? So no reason to be scared anymore. In this video, I'm going to try to explain these essential elements of music theory in just 15 minutes. This is a sound. The sound is produced by vibrations. If the vibrations are faster, the pitch of the sound is higher. The slower the vibrations, the lower the pitch. If you double the frequency of that note that you played, you get the same pitch but higher. At one point of the music history, we decided to divide this space between the two pitches into 12 half steps or semitones. You will notice that there is a certain pattern on the keyboard. These half steps are organized on black and white keys and following a pattern of alternating white keys with 2 or 3 black keys. Every time you double the frequency, the distance between that one note and the other one at the same point in the pattern, a little bit higher, is called an octave. An octave is an example of what in music we call intervals. What is an interval? Whenever I encounter a new word, I personally take a look at how the word originated. The word interval derives from the Latin inter, which means in between, and vallus, which were the walls ancient Romans built in order to define borders. Originally, intervallus was the space between one wall and the next. In music, then, an interval is simply the distance between two pitches or two notes. In the music theory's world, we call these pairs of pitches dyads. If the two pitches of a dyad sound at the same time, the interval between them is an harmonic interval. If the two pitches in question are played back to back, one after the other, as in the melody, the intervals between these pitches is a melodic interval. Let's look back at the subdivision of the octave into 12 semitones. A half step or semitone is easily recognizable as it is formed by two keys that are adjacent on the keyboard. Two half steps form a whole step. So a half step between two pitches with the same name but different accidentals, for example F and F sharp, it's called chromatic half step. A half step that uses two different note names, for example F and G flat, which is the same kind of sound, is a diatonic half step. In Western music theory and in tonal music, we use a pattern of half and whole steps to build what we call scales. What is a scale? A scale is a stepwise arrangement of notes or pitches contained within an octave. Major and minor scales contain 7 notes or scale degrees. A major scale contains a specific set of whole and half steps. It is helpful to think of the pattern as consisting of 2 tetrachords or a 4-note segment. The tetrachord consists of the pattern whole step, half step, and then a whole step in between, and we will have the next tetrachord, whole step, half step. Now, this seems to have nothing to do with the intervals, right? And instead, it has a lot to do with intervals. And you will see that in a moment. So, for now, just keep these 2 tetrachords of the major scale in the back of your mind. The simplest way to measure intervals, particularly at the keyboard, is to count the number of half steps. To determine the chromatic interval between C4 and E4, for example, start at C4 and ascend the chromatic scale up to E4, counting the steps along the way. C4, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So C4 to E4 is 4 semitones, or I4. More commonly for tonal music, we count the number of steps on a major or minor scale. It is easy to identify these older types of intervals on a score, a bit less on an instrument, unless I name the pitches in a diatonic system. When identifying a diatonic interval, begin with the letter names only. It doesn't matter at this step to distinguish a C from a C sharp, for example. Then count the number of steps on a diatonic scale between the 2 pitches in question, including both pitches in your count. This gives you the generic interval. So, for example, we will have a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and so on.
Okay, from C to B. Seven. From E to G. 3. Third. From F to A flat. Third. From C to C. 8. No! Octave! It is called octave. From D to D. Octave. From F sharp to F sharp. Octave. Octave, yes. I don't know. Why do they call that octave? Why? Because octave means 8.
These intervals then have different qualities, depending on the number of half steps contained between the 2 pitches. There are 5 possible interval qualities. Second, third, sixth, and seventh can be major or minor. Prime, fourth, fifth, and octave are perfect. All the intervals can be diminished or augmented.
So, for example, CE is a major third because we have 4 semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I want a minor interval, I just lower a little bit, a half step, the major interval. So I have a minor third, C, E flat. And if I lower the third a little bit more, C, E double flat, which is the D. This is a diminished third. And then if I raise a little bit the third, the major third, so I will have an augmented third, C, E sharp, which is F. With the perfect intervals instead, for example, CF. This is the same, right? Now, CF is a perfect fourth. C, F flat, if I lower a little bit the fourth, the perfect fourth, I will have a diminished fourth, C, F flat, which is the same as a major third, right? And if I raise a little bit the fourth, I will have an augmented fourth, So perfect fourth, diminished fourth, augmented fourth. So let's take, for example, CA is a major sixth. I lower a little bit. The sixth, C, A flat is a minor sixth. I lower a little bit more. And C, A double flat is a diminished sixth. And C, A sharp is an augmented sixth.
Now, there are several methods for identifying the quality of these intervals. The white key method requires you to memorize all of the intervals found between the white keys on the piano.
For example, we have all major seconds on the white keys, so C and D and E, except 2. So between E and F and between B and C we have a half step, so this is a minor second. Then we have major third, C, E, D, F has 3 semitones in between, so this is a minor third. E, G is a minor third, F, A, major third, G, B is a major third, A, C is a minor third, and B and D is a minor third, and so on. So then C, F is a perfect fourth, D, G is a perfect fourth, E, A is a perfect fourth, F, B is an augmented fourth, then perfect fourth, and this is a perfect fourth. And for the fifths, we have the same thing. Perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth, perfect fifth. And this is a diminished fifth. And then we have the sixth, major sixth, major sixth. This is a minor sixth, major sixth, major sixth, minor sixth, minor sixth. And then for the seventh, we only have this. C and B is a major seventh, and everything else is a minor seventh. It's a minor seventh.
Once you have learned this, any interval can be calculated as an alteration of a white key interval. For example, we can figure out the interval D4 F sharp 4 if we know that the interval D4 F4 is a minor third, and this interval has been made 1 semitone higher, so this is a major third. And we also have the scale method, because we know that the intervals contained between the first pitch and any of the other pitches of a major scale can only be major or perfect if we know well the sequence of pitches of all our major scales. It is easy to identify the quality of the interval we are analyzing. Any interval larger than an octave is considered as a compound interval. Take, for example, the interval between C4 and E5. The generic interval is a tenth, or also called a compound third, because the simple interval between a C and the E would be a third. A compound interval takes the same quality as the corresponding simple interval. If C4 E4 is a major third, then C4 E5 is a major tenth or major compound third. A dial that keeps the same 2 pitch classes but changes register will have a similar sound, and they are said to be inversions of each other because the pitch classes are inverted. Again, take C4 E4 major third and E4 C5 minor sixth. These 2 dials have the 2 same pitches, but one has C on the bottom and E on the top, while the other one has E on the bottom and C on the top. If we want to look at the inversions, the chromatic intervals add up to 12. So, for example, I4 and I8 is equal to 12, so the inversions would be of I4 would be I8. The 2 generic interval values add up to 9, a third plus a sixth, or 3 plus 6. This is because the two intervals add up to an octave, 8, and one of the notes is counted twice. So the major interval inverts into a minor and vice versa. Likewise, an augmented interval is always diminished in its inversion and vice versa. A perfect interval's inversion is always perfect.
So was that all? What do you want more? I thought you said the video should be 15 minutes. It is 16 minutes. Is that all we need to know about intervals? No, that's all. It is a very, very simple concept.
I hope for you that this is really it.
What about the intervals in set theory?